Russia slammed the U.S. decision to arm Ukraine, saying it could cause new bloodshed. Russia's deputy foreign minister made the statement after the U.S. approved a plan to supply Kiev with weapons, including anti-tank missiles. Fighting in eastern Ukraine against Russia-backed separatists has killed more than 10,000 people since 2014. Well, for more on this, I'm joined by Dmitry Babich. He's a political analyst at Sputnik International. Dmitry, thank you very much for joining us here on TRT World. When you look at the situation, currently there is no political settlement. However, back in 2015, France and Russia did help broker a deal that greatly reduced the violence, or sort of reduced the scale of the fighting, at least, in the area. Right now, with this latest arms sale, how likely is it that it will once again spark the violence?
Well, I would say that the situation is very dangerous because, as you rightly said, the Minsk Accords in February 2015, these accords were signed by France, Germany, the Kiev regime, and the so-called separatists from Donbass. These accords helped reduce the number of victims, but of course the main factor was the fact that Poroshenko's onslaught on Donbass was simply a military disaster. The Ukrainian army was in fact defeated, so it was the main factor that reduced the number of casualties. However, now the situation is very dangerous again because there are skirmishes almost every 2 days on the border between the separatists and the regime. The recent decision by the US administration to send anti-tank missiles for Poroshenko, if it is true, because right now we know it only from Associated Press, if it is true, it is indeed dangerous because the Ukrainian forces will get 35 anti-tank guns, that can fire anti-tank missiles called Javelin. What will happen is that in response, Donetsk and Lugansk may acquire more tanks, and they may bring more anti-tank weapons. Such weapons exist in the region. Russia has them. Of course, that may lead to an escalation of violence.
Okay.
The most troubling thing is that the so-called Normandy Format, Russia, Germany, France, and the Kiev regime, this format has been dead since August. So now Russia is negotiating with the United States during rare meetings on the neutral ground, somewhere in Belgrade usually. And the United States is a lot more belligerent than France and Germany. France and Germany wanted Mr. Poroshenko's victory. They were, of course, not objective, but they wanted Poroshenko to win by peaceful means.
All right.
The United States is ready to try weapons.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Dimitri, I want to ask you, if this arms sales does go through, talk to us about some of the options that the Kremlin has. I mean, what type of retaliation could we see from the Russian government?
Well, it's hard for me to talk about the Russian government because officially Russia is not even mentioned in the Minsk agreements that we have mentioned before. But of course, the so-called separatist regimes in Donetsk and Lugansk, they will not lie down and die. They will resist because they are left no choice. Ukraine has stopped all money transfers to this region back in 2014. There is a food blockade. There is a water blockade. There is an electricity blockade. So these regions, they get everything they need, water, electricity, food, they get it from Russia. And of course, since the Ukrainian government arrested just about all the pro-Russian activists in the areas that they control in the east, of course, if Donetsk and Lugansk are occupied by the Ukrainian army, that would mean imprisonment and maybe execution of thousands of people. So they will fight.
Okay.
And if Americans think that Javelin missiles that they are going to sell to Ukraine to the tune of $47 million, if they think that Javelin missiles will resolve the problem, they are wrong.
Okay.
The main problem is not the weapons. The main problem is the people and the amount of hatred between the new crudely nationalist regime in Kiev and the mostly Russian-speaking regions in the east of Ukraine. That hatred now is absolute.